Okay, let's start. Okay, Pranam mantras. Om Agyan Tamarandasya Jananjala Shlakaya Chakshurunmaitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunantam Antvatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhuna Dutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranami Hari Priye Panchakalpatrubhyascha Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamne Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pacharane Shri Shunyavadi Pashatai Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadha Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Bhagavatam Pranam verses. Narayana Namaskritam Naram Chavanrotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayadurire Shanuvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Hridayantusa Badrani Vidmoti Sutsatam Nashna Prayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kamaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Prabhupada. So, Hare Krishna Parmari Prabhu and Neela Mataji. I don't know who's 108.
Sorry, Prabhu, it's me, Radha Kundari. It was Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. 108, wow.
No,
Who could that be referring to? Krishna's cows or Mahamantras? Or? Great, thank you for joining, Mataji. Thank you, Neela Mataji. Thank you, Vanmali Prabhu. Okay, so we're in Canto 1, Chapter 11, verse 15, displayed up here. Here's a short purport. So,
can you make it a little bigger? It's a very small letters, I could say.
Sure, let me try, okay? Is that better, Mataji?
It's the same thing. Yes, Prabhu, now it's good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'll just scroll down here, okay? Okay, it's all captured in one screen. Okay, so I'll repeat 3 times, and then those that want to repeat can do so. Dwari dwari granam cha dadi akshata fal ikshabhi alankrat punar kumbhahi palabhi dhupadipayaki dwari dwari granam cha dadi akshata fala ikshubhi alankratam purna kumbhahi balbi dhupadipaki dwari dwari granam cha Dadi Akshakta Phala Ikshubhi Alankratam Purna Kumbahi Balibi Dhupadipai Ki. Please, if someone can chant.
I'll go to.
Yes.
Dwari dwari gruhanam cha daidakshata falekshubhihi alankritam purna kumbhera balibhir dhupadipakai. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Anybody else would like to take a chance and chant this?
Hey Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna.
Dwari dwari grihanam cha dadyakshata falekshubhihi alankritam purna kumbhair balibhir dhupa deepakai.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar Prabhu. Very nice. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dwari dwari grihanam cha dadi akshata phala ikshubhi alankritam purna kumbhair balibi tu padipakai.
Thank you, Vinay Prabhu. Anybody else would like to chant? If not, we can go ahead with synonyms. Okay. Dwari Dwari, the door of each and every house. Granam, of all the residential buildings. Cha, and Dadi, curd. Akshata, unbroken. Phal, fruit. Ikshubhihi, sugar cane. Alankratam, decorated. Purna Kumbhahi, full water pots. Balabhi, along with articles for worship. Dhoop, incense. Deepaki, with lamps and candles. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In each and every door of the residential buildings, in each and every door of the residential houses, auspicious things like curd, unbroken fruit, sugar cane, and full water pots with articles for worship, incense, and candles were all displayed. In each and every door of the residential houses, auspicious things like curd, unbroken fruit, sugar cane, and full water pots with articles for worship, incense, and candles were all displayed. Purport. The process of reception according to Vedic rites is not at all dry. The reception was made not simply by decorating the roads and streets as mentioned above, but by worshiping the Lord with requisite ingredients like incense, lamps, flowers, sweets, fruits, and other palatable eatables, according to one's capacity. All were offered to the Lord, and the remnants of the foodstuff were distributed amongst the gathering citizens. So it was not like a dry reception of these modern days. Each and every house was ready to receive the Lord in a similar way, and thus each and every house on the roads and streets distributed such remnants of food to the citizens, and therefore the festival was successful. Without distribution of food, no function is complete, and that is the way of Vedic culture. Dwari dwari ghanam cha, dadi akshakta phal ikshubhi, alankratam purna kambahi, balbi dhupa dipaiki. In each and every door of the residential houses, auspicious things like curd, unbroken fruits, sugarcane, and full water pots with articles for worship, incense, and candles were all displayed. Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we've been reading this chapter 11, and I like to always, since it's a conversation occurring between the sages and the senior most devotees, I'd like to kind of just go over the context of the verse. Contextual reading is very important. Otherwise, one can pick and choose things according to one's material point of view and find things that support what one says and somebody else can read something else and find something different that supports what they say. So context is important. Context of the conversation, as in the Gita. So also in Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why Srimad Bhagavatam says one should go systematically through Srimad Bhagavatam rather than skip from one verse to another. And you all are doing that so nicely in various activities. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 11, the residents of Dwarka, by their personal example, teach us how we should welcome the Lord. Upon hearing the Lord's sound via his conch shell, all the residents, all the way from Krishna, Lord Krishna's own family to common people, you will see later on, it talks about artisans, people who, the younger ladies, even the prostitutes, etc. Irrespective of their social economic status, everyone ran to welcome the Lord wholeheartedly, because the sound heralded by Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says, he talks about in text 2, he says, it was like the sound heralding the sunrise in the morning. So in a way, all the citizens of Dwarka awoke from a state of slumber. When sunrise comes and you hear auspicious sounds, it means morning has arisen. I was in the city of Nagpur in 2016, and every morning the Gayatri mantra would come on, along with the sunrise. So it was nice in a way. So all those citizens of Dwarka awoke from a sleeping, kind of a stage of sleep, because of the sunrise of Lord Krishna's presence. And they all hastened towards him for an audience. They're all anxious to have gathering with Lord Krishna, although because of spiritual contact, they were never separated from Bhagavan. Just like the gopis of Vrindavan used to think Krishna, while he was away from the village doing, cow herding, etc., they were separated in distance, but never in consciousness. Likewise, the citizens of Dwarka had all been immersed in absorption of the Lord, thought of the Lord while he was away. Because he was at the Battle of Kurukshetra and he was now coming back from Hastinapur. And they made offerings to the Lord with whatever capacity they had. So Sri Jiva Goswami mentions in his Sandarbhas that Bhagavan is satisfied with even the smallest offerings, even though he's always happy in himself. And in particular, he cites, these verses, verse 4 through 5, to demonstrate that the residents' offerings were saturated with priti, love. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajata priti purvakam. Priti purvakam. And their extraordinary happiness and love in seeing him again, these emotions give Lord pleasure. They spoke to the Lord with affectionate words. So they made offerings. They spoke, it says gada gada gira, ecstatic speech. They said, you are supremely worshipable. You can see this here. You are supremely worshipable. Time cannot influence you. You are everything to us, mother, well-wisher, Lord, Father, spiritual master, and worshipful deity. Our success has come in following your footsteps. How many of us think like that? Our success has come in following your footsteps. Our success has come in following your footsteps. Please continue to bless us. Our good fortune is that we can see your transcendental auspicious form. And then they say, how can we exist without your presence? So we know from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood instructions, that feeling of separation from Lord Ritalamba is the perfection of pure devotional service. And one can only get that when one's total consciousness is diverted towards the loving service of Bhagwan. In the material world, we forget this relationship. But Srila Prabhupada explains those wonderful, beautiful explanations of the verses of teachings of Queen Kunti, or the prayers of Queen Kunti, that as soon as there's Krishna consciousness, as soon as there's action on basis of Krishna, it's no longer the material world, but the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, matter dovetailed for the service of Supreme becomes spiritual. So in the previous verses that devotees have read about the description of, so that's kind of bringing us up to the point of glorification of Dwarka, and then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all kind of glorify the residence of the Lord. And basically the cities, gate, the roads, the doors, the arches were all nicely decorated. And there are festive things, items like plantain trees, mango leaves to welcome the Lord. There are flags, garlands, signs, and slogans. Sounds like Janmashtami, all combined to, bring out the beauty. The highways, the markets, the public meeting places, cleaned and moistened with scented water, just like a temple. And to welcome the Lord, fruits, flowers, unbroken seeds are strewn everywhere. And in the particular verse we're reading, in each and every door of the residential houses, auspicious things like curd, unbroken fruits, sugarcane, full water pots, with articles for worship, incense and candles were all displayed. So, a lot of care. Every single arrangement being made to welcome the Lord was done with love and care for Lord Krishna's pleasure. Srila Prabhupada writes very wonderful aspects in this. The three items I'm going to focus on is welcoming is not at all dry. And the welcoming is according to one's capacity. And I will talk about the Prashadam. Those are three focuses on this very short but very deep purport. So in Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu, Sri Rupa Goswami says there are two ways in which Krishna is friendly to devotees. Number one, he's easily served. So you can see that, everybody has curd, fruit, things like that. It's not something like mega opulence. So he says Krishna is friendly towards his devotees in that he's easily served. And he becomes a friend of his servant. And he cites this verse here. Excuse me. Specifically, Jiva Goswami, following in the footsteps of Sri Rupa Goswami, cites this verse by Bhishma Pitama, chapter 9, verse 37 in Canto 1. Bhishma Pitama glorifies Lord Krishna. He says, fulfilling my vow. Other places says, fulfilling my desire. And sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly. Just as a lion goes to kill an elephant, he even dropped his outer garment on the way. So Jiva Goswami says that Lord Krishna, Bhishma Pitama is saying, Lord Krishna came towards me to kill me, but he did not do so. May that Lord be the object of our mind. He was like a lion attacking an elephant. But here's what Jiva Goswami, gets into a rasa. He said his sense of friendship with its devotion, meaning Lord Krishna's devotion, detected a trace of past devotion in me, who had by faith, this is Bhishma Pitama speaking, Jiva Goswami, who by faith, the passage of time, have now become a great offender to Krishna and his friend Arjuna. And in addition, such friendship increased my glory, Bhishma Pitama is saying, while decreasing his glory. So Lord Krishna is not controlled by service or some of the items, Jiva Goswami says, he's controlled by love. A good example of that is Mother Yashoda and Lord Damodar, how he's controlled by her extreme love. So the point here is our simple items are being offered. And because, as it says in Bhakti-rasmrita Sindhu, Krishna is friendly to devotees. And he allows himself to be easily served. And he becomes a friend of his servant. So, the presence of Durga, it explains not only, first started those section of verses first describing Durga first talked about cleaning the general area, the surroundings, and this verse is talking about lovingly offering. Srila Prabhupada says, not dry. It's not, Vedic rites are not dry. The reception was made not simply by decorating, but by worshiping and offering food items and arti to Lord, and later distributing those items. So Sri Rupa Goswami talks about in Bhakti-rasmrita Sindhu that there's an external form of bhakti, the activity we perform with our body and senses. And these are, when you look at the 64 items that are described in Bhakti-rasmrita Sindhu and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, a lot of them have an external form that one does through body and senses. Like dancing before the deities, etc. And Rupa Goswami says there's a second kind of bhakti, one which is what is going within our heart, our feelings, our intention. And he goes on to say that bhakti remains incomplete without these two manifestations: the effort of the senses and a devotional of the body and the senses, and effort through them, and a devotional feeling which arises in the heart and mind. And that's why we see Srila Prabhupada translates bhakti into loving devotional service. So service can be done with the body, that is true, but the love and devotion come from the heart, not the body. That's why Srila Prabhupada says the process of reception according to Vedic rites is not at all dry. Srila Bhaktisanta Maharaj, in his letters to his disciples, in a book called Patramrita, says manufactured sugar and unadulterated ghee, meaning, like my wife was showing me that, okay, this is ghee that you can use general for cooking, but this is ghee specifically that you only touch when it's Kadashi. So manufactured sugar and adulterated ghee are impure, whereas homemade pure sugar and unadulterated ghee are pure. But both pure and impure objects are products of matter. Unless offered with heartfelt love and devotion, the Supreme Lord accepts neither pure nor impure objects. Unless offered with heartfelt love and devotion, the Supreme Lord accepts neither pure nor impure objects. Unless offered with heartfelt love and devotion, Supreme Lord accepts neither pure or impure objects. So Bhakti Yoga, when done like that, can revive our remembrance, our attraction to our dearmost friend, Shurdham, as Bhagavad Gita says, the Supreme Lord Krishna, to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is present in all of our hearts. He is our well-wisher, our real protector, and he can satisfy all of our desires. Therefore, the idea of combining body and senses and a heart filled with love and gratitude is fulfilling that one rule from Padma Purana. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. And all of our devotional practices are aligned with that compass. Srila Prabhupada says, now going on, Srila Prabhupada says, worshipping with requisite ingredients, according to one's capacity. So I wanted to show something here. Hopefully, this is from the Deity Worship Ministry. So Srila Prabhupada says, this is very important business. So I'm getting to the portion about worship. This is very important worship, business, deity worship. The more the deity is decorated, the more your heart will be decorated with Krishna consciousness. The Lord is transcendental to our mundane sense. He cannot be seen with our present eyes, nor can he be heard with our present ears. To the degree that we've entered into the service of the Lord, or to the proportion in which our lives are freed from sins, we can perceive the Lord. But even though we're not free from sins, the Lord is kind enough to allow us the facility of seeing him in his archa murtis in the temple. The Lord is all-powerful, and therefore he is able to accept our service by presentation of his archa form. No one therefore should foolishly think that the archa in temple is an idol. Such an archa murti is not an idol, but the Lord himself. And to the proportion to which one is freed from sins, he's able to know the significance of archa murti. The guidance of pure devotees, therefore, all is required for Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is very important business, deity worship. The more the deity is decorated, the more our heart will be decorated with Krishna consciousness. So what about this capacity issue that's being mentioned in that purport? So I'll show this here. So this is explained. And I'm going to show this here. What is the difference? A lot of devotees have home deities. But Srila Prabhupada's clear instruction was always, that the temple deities are one's Istadev deities. Always. That's why in the 70s, very few devotees had home deities. Of course, a lot of them lived in ashram, but I've heard many, many sannyasis saying that. So this is instructed through Srila Prabhupada's sannyas guru, Keshav Maharaj. The worship of the Lord, which is performed by householders within their home, is one variety, and that found in the temples of formerly installed deities of the Lord is second. The first kind, meaning home worship, is performed with ingredients according to the means of the householder, and therefore reduced or shortened service. The second type is the worship of the Supreme Lord as a king, and awe and reverence. Srila Prabhupada, and I've heard Srila Prabhupada say this, I've heard His Holiness Radha Maharaj say this, that the temple worship is oftentimes in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, awe and reverence. But Braj service is not like that. In such kingly service, regular worship is a necessity, as otherwise sinful reaction is incurred. Householders and those who have given up their homes but are carrying on simple deity worship are able to offer foodstuffs to the Lord more or less according to the needs of their own families, of associate Vaishnavas, or of the guests who come to them. But kingly service of the deity, everything must be regulated. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says here, according to one's capacity. So at home, we can do according to what's capacity. Yeah. I was listening to a lecture by Gauranga Prabhu. He does this very nice lecture where he covers one verse from each chapter for the first 10 chapters for Krishna Janmashtami. And he was talking about how Lord Krishna, when he appeared to Vasudeva and Devaki, they had lost, all the prior children to the hands of Krishna, or to the hands of Kamsa. And so they had the appearance of a child. We all know how happy we get when we have a child in our home. Everything else is all the misery and everything else is forgotten, pain of labor, etc. But Lord Krishna did not give any time to Vasudeva or Devaki to hold him, to bathe him with their tears, to get solace and comfort for their years of suffering. He simply said to Vasudeva, "You take me to Gokul." So, Ganga Prabhu was saying, devotional service is meant to give pleasure to the Lord. And you can see this in Priti Sandarbha, where Sri Jiva Goswami says that first purpose is pleasure to the Lord, and second is happiness to the devotee. So devotion service should always give pleasure to the Lord in whatever one's capacity. That's the litmus test. And how does one know that it's doing that? Because one's desire to serve will increase. One's consciousness will be connected to Krishna, and one will see Krishna's hand in their lives as a practical day-to-day example. So that was the second point. And then last point was I want to focus on prasadam. Prasadam, as we know, is very important to Vaishnavas. The three things, and it's not just an ISKCON thing, it's present towards all Vaishnava, practices. One amongst the three things that Lord Chaitanya extracted from Sri Ramanujacharya's teachings, although Lord Chaitanya is Bhagwan himself, he honors pure acharyas. That's, he's setting an example, is Nam Ruchi, Jivadaya, and Vaishnava Seva. Love for the holy name, compassion for the jivas, all jivas, and Vaishnava Seva. So Srila Prabhupada says each and every house is ready to receive the Lord in a similar way, and thus each and every house on the roads and streets distributed such remnants of food to the citizens, and therefore the festival was successful. Without distribution of food, no function is complete, and that is the way of Vedic culture. So as I mentioned, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna Srila Prabhupada states about the change of matter to spiritual is an extraordinary change. But it's something that we as devotees are involved in daily. For example, when you burn incense, something, and this is a very kind of practical example. When you burn incense, you're taking something that's material, and you can see it kind of burning and becoming something not so visible by our material eyes. So that's why burning of incense is kind of essential, a process that most people observe in all forms of deity worship. So, it's changing when matter is changed. Matter gets changed to spiritual when it's used for the service of the Lord. So the key question is, when does prasadam become prasadam? Certainly, we would all agree when it's offered to the Lord. But for an offering to be successful, the Lord must accept it. And so when Krishna accepts what we offer to him, then it becomes prasadam, not just by offering it. When Krishna accepts it. And why is that so important? Well, what Krishna talks about this. Prasada sarva dukhanam asopajite prasana chetasa hiyashu buddhi paryavashtapate. Receiving the mercy of the Lord removes all other mercies, all other misery. Receiving the mercy of the Lord removes all miseries, destroys. Therefore, when we honor prasadam, we feel joyous because prasadam destroys the results of our past sinful activity. Sri Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when he talks about prasadam, he says it makes us feel very auspicious. So prasadam, accepting, honoring. We never say eat prasadam, we say honoring prasadam. So receiving prasadam is receiving the mercy of the Lord, and it destroys our dukkhanam. So what is really being accepted? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Purusham Phalam Toyam Yome Bhakti Priyachata Tadaham Bhakti Upayatam Ashnami Prayatamana. If one offers me with love and devotion a fruit, a leaf, a flower, fruit or water, I will accept it. So he's saying, I accept the bhakti. That's why I spoke that comment from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. Krishna doesn't accept impure or pure items unless it's offered with a heart full of devotion. We may offer a leaf, a flower, fruit, milk, items cooked in auspicious things like ghee, but the devotion is what carries those preparations to Krishna, and that's what makes him inclined to accept it. That's what. In Ishopanishad it says, Tad dure tadve antake. The Lord is far away, but he's very near as well. So wherever we are, when we offer something to Krishna with intense devotion, Krishna, please accept this offer. That devotion brings him right to us. That person who's tad dure, tad antike, that person becomes near to us. So, we should recognize that not all offerings are on the same level. They depend on the nature of a devotee. So, does that mean there are different kinds of prasadam? And the answer is yes. Yes. Krishna says, Ye tamam prapadete tam sadam bhajami mam. Mama vatmanam anavartante manushya parta savasyaha. Very famous word. As all surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. According to the quality and quantity of devotion with which one makes an offering to Krishna, that offering proportionally becomes prasada. So what is that? What is it that is different? How is the prasadam becoming spiritual? When you put most of us have the experience that when we put the offering plate in front of Lord, the deities, it looks the same before and after. Although Ujjwal Prabhu would often, I remember, very sweetly say that you can tell what devotion the offering is made because the Lord will be gaining weight. I have not had that experience yet, but that's very sweet. So what happens? Although the plate looks the same before and after. So what happens is that Krishna reciprocates with the devotion of that devotee by manifesting his Shakti, his internal potency, to the degree that the devotee wants. So to the degree which the devotee wants, like we talked about, Sri Rupa Goswami talks about Bhakti-rasmrita Sindhu, that there's activity that's done by the body and the senses, but there's also activity done through our heart. That's what it means. So it's become, the Lord accepts according to degree that we manifest a quality and quantity of devotion. And we'll show you a very beautiful example of that. And this is in Antya Lila. Lord Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tastes nectar from the lips of Lord Sri Krishna. So this is in Jagannath Puri. And if we go from verse 80 through 99, it keeps going, but for the sake of time. One day, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to visit the temple of Jagannath, the gatekeeper, the Simhadwar, the lion gate, approached him and offered respectful obeisances. The Lord asked him, "Where's Krishna, my life and soul? Please show me Krishna." Saying this, he caught the doorkeeper's hand. The doorkeeper replied, "The son of Maharaj Nanda is here. Please come along with me and I shall show you." So that's how we should feel when we see the deity. That this is not stone or metal or wood. This is none other than the son of Maharaj Nanda. Lord Chaitanya said to the doorman, "You're my friend. Please show me where the Lord of my heart is." And afterwards, the Lord said, they both went to a place known as Jagamohan, where everyone views Lord Jagannath. So the doorkeeper says, "Just see, here's the best of the personalities of Godhead. From here, you may see the Lord to the full satisfaction of your eyes." So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed behind the huge column called Garuda Stamba and looked upon Lord Jagannath. But as he looked, he saw that Lord Jagannath had become Krishna with his flute to his mouth. In his book known as Gauranga Stava Kalpa Vriksha, Rabindranath Das Goswami has described this incident very nicely. "My dear friend, the doorkeeper, where is Krishna, the Lord of my heart? Kindly show him to me, quickly." With these words, Lord Chaitanya addressed the doorkeeper like a madman. The doorkeeper grasped his hand and replied very hastily, "Come see your beloved. May that Lord Sri Chaitanya rise within my heart and thus make me mad also." The offering of food known as Gopal Vallabha Bhoga was then given to Lord Jagannath, and Arati was performed with a sound of conch and ringing of bells. When the Arati finished, the prasadam was taken out, and the servants of Lord Jagannath came to offer some to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The servants of Lord Jagannath first garlanded Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then offered him Lord Jagannath's prasadam. The prasadam was so nice that its aroma alone, to say nothing of its taste, would drive the mind mad. The prasadam was made of very valuable ingredients, therefore the servant wanted to feed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a portion of it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tasted a portion of prasadam, Govinda, his servant, took the rest and found it in the end of his wrapper. To Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the prasadam tasted millions of times better than nectar, and thus he was fully satisfied. The hair all over his body stood on end, and incessant tears flowed from his eyes. How many times do we have that when we honor prasadam? That our hair stands on end, and incessant tears flow from our eyes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered, where has such taste in this prasadam come from? Certainly it's due to its being touched by the nectar of Krishna's lips. Understanding this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt an emotion of ecstatic love for Krishna, but upon seeing the servants of Lord Jagannath, he restrained himself. So very advanced devotees hold with themselves their intense feelings. They don't necessarily display publicly. The Lord said again and again, only by great fortune may one come by a particle of the remnants of food offered to the Lord. These are remnants of food that Krishna has eaten and thus turned to nectar with his lips. It surpasses heavenly nectar, and even such demigods as Lord Brahma find it difficult to obtain. Remnants left by Krishna are called pala. Anyone who obtains a small portion must be considered very fortunate. One who is only ordinary fortunate cannot obtain such mercy. Only persons who have the full mercy of Krishna can receive these ornaments. So the main thing here, as went before, is where Mahaprabhu here says, where has such a taste in this prasadam come from? Certainly it's due to its having been touched by Krishna's lips. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tastes Jagannath prasadam in Puri. He becomes overwhelmed with the ecstatic taste of the prasadam, and he glorifies the prasadam. And he can actually taste the saliva of Krishna's lotus lips mixed with the food. And so that's how he's glorifying the effect of touch of Krishna's lips. So this is what happens when someone in loving devotion tastes prasadam that's been offered to the Lord. Prasadam is Krishna's internal potency. It's non-different from Krishna, and it is dynamic. Meaning a loving devotee may taste more of the spiritual potency present in prasadam than was originally manifest even to the pujari who offered it. And this example shows that. So prasadam is often thought of as food items, but ultimately, this is the life of a devotee. They live for Krishna, and they do everything to become Krishna conscious. And so their life becomes prasadam. The Gopas and Braj Leela simply sit down with Krishna and eat from their, lunch packs. They don't make any offering to Krishna. When they offer something to Krishna, they take it from their lunch packs and put it right away in Krishna's mouth. Or they might even bite half of a laddu and they say, oh, Krishna, just see how wonderful this tastes, and put the rest in Krishna's mouth. Yo me bhakti priyachati. It's just their love. So at that point, formality or of the offering is not relevant, because what Krishna really wants is love and devotion. Yo me bhakti priyachati. That's all that actually interests Krishna. And so we see whether Mother Yashoda offers her breast milk, the gopis offer their bodies, the cows offer their milk, the cowherd boys wrestle and jump on Krishna's shoulder. Everything becomes prasadam because it's offered as an offering of love. So prasadam is dynamic. Our experience with it depends on the intensity of our devotion. The spiritual potency can be even greater than that experienced by the one who is actually making the offering. So I focused on this verse, Dwari Dwari Grinacha Dadadi Akshata Shubi Alankratam Purna Kumbhir Balabir Dhupati Bakai. In each and every door of the residential houses, auspicious things like curd, unbroken fruit, sugar cane, and full water pots with article of worship, incense, and candles were all displayed. So the focus of what I spoke was that reception of the Lord is not a dry procedure. It's according to one's worship. And we spoke about the transcendental nature of prasada. Chakapatribhyacha Kaposindhavyacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If there are any comments, corrections, realizations,
Hare Krishna.
comments, let me know. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing so many nectarian verses from different scriptures, and very nicely you have explained, Prabhu, how to worship the Lord with Preeti, basically, by quoting from Preeti Sandarbha from Jiva Goswami. So with starting only you have took us to some other world, Prabhu. Thank you so much for you have nicely that verse was very nice. How Bhishma Dev felt when Krishna was coming on the battlefield. That was very nice to hear what Jiva Goswami has mentioned about that. It was very nectar, Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing also that verse, Prabhu. And also you have mentioned deity worship ministry, the deity, how we have to worship the deity, household, and also the temple worship. You mentioned very nicely, Prabhu. And also you have quoted different verses from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, like Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, how basically you focused more on how to worship the Lord with love and the ingredients of worship. Very nice to hear, Prabhu. Finally, actually, you have added more nectar to your lecture by quoting how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tasted, the prasadam of Lord Jagannath. How it will be so much nectar, brings so much of taste when Krishna touches the offering, with his lips. It was those verses are very beautiful, to read with you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for all the nectarian verses you have shared today, Prabhu. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your deep devotion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Radhakund Mataji. Any other comments, realizations? So we can see that even the purport is so short, it carries a lot of depth to the instructions in there.
I was actually thinking, Prabhu, I was seeing there because I was in next week is my turn. So I was seeing how, Prabhu, I just wanted to see how you would elaborate this small verse today, but you have made it very nicely, Prabhu. And I realized, my realization is usually when we offer food to the Lord, right? I don't focus that much on that, Prabhu, how the taste, after offering. And now I could, I understand that how we have to feel when we, just like that, I eat without having any feelings or anything like that. But now I understand that. And it is touched with the lips of the Lord. I mean, we have to actually honor that, and we have to experience that, and we have to eat prasadam. So that's what I learned from your lecture today, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yeah, like how many times do we, how many times do we, when we honor prasadam, feel the hair on our body arising and tears coming out of our eyes? Tears will come out of our eyes if we hear empty pots, and our turn to get prasadam has not been delivered to us. But then we're just making prasadam material. And ultimately, the most important point is that everything we do as devotees becomes Krishna prasadam. The cowherd boys didn't, they didn't chant mantras, etc. They just took prasadam and put it into the Lord's mouth, kind of like what Sabri did, right? And and Mother Yashoda doesn't chant a bunch of mantras. She just gives Krishna breast milk. The gopis give their bodies to Lord Krishna. The cows give their milk. The cowherd boys, wrestle with Krishna and say, "What kind of big man are you, Krishna?" So everything becomes prasadam when it's offered with love. When one speaks from Bhagavatam, when one takes care of a devotee nicely, when one understands that my sojourn in this material world is tiny, my time in this world is insignificant, all the worldly relationships that I so value, my family, my friends, my work, my kids, my parents, my spouses, totally temporary. Let me make my life successful by doing something that gives pleasure to Lord Krishna. That's prasada. And that's what we aspire for as, sadhakas. So it's always important to know what the goal is. Okay, it's 9:01. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you very much. Please come for Sunday feast.
Thank you